days versus holy days, which were the holy days that we talked about in a previous episode, that God has actually, ordained and put in the Bible that He wants His children, that's us, to follow. So the next question is, does it matter to God about all of this? Okay, it's in there, and in the society that we live in, as we've said already, a lot of those holidays, if not all of them, have been replaced by man-made holidays or altered in some way. So that's what we're going to tackle the question for this episode. It doesn't matter to God that these things have occurred. Now, it may seem to me and a lot of people listening that what the answer may be, but let's still, explore it. So let's just go over some information. So over the last 2 millennia, traditional Christianity has systematically laid aside the feast days of the Lord, or festival days of the Lord, or holy days, and established its own holidays. Now, Christmas was established to enable pagan converts to come into church fellowship without forsaking their previous customs, and practices. Then we have Easter, which is a replacement for the biblical Passover and the days of unleavened bread that we've already learned about in a previous episode. So even the weekly Sabbath, was abandoned, and changed and altered in favor of Sunday, which is actually the pagan day of the sun. Sunday. Makes sense, right? Supposedly to commemorate Jesus' resurrection, though as we demonstrated and we've talked about earlier, it took place not on Sunday morning, but at the end of the weekly Sabbath at sunset Saturday. Now, although we should immediately recognize that overruling God's instructions is dangerous behavior, let's just consider from the biblical record whether such inventions and alterations, worship are acceptable. Acceptable worship to our Creator, our Heavenly Father, Jehovah God. So when God began working with the ancient Israelites, He intended they set an example of obedience to Him for the nations around them. And there is an account found in Deuteronomy 4, verse 1, as well as 6 through 8. And they were to be a model nation, showing other peoples that God's way of life produces abundant blessings. And their experiences serve as continuing examples for us, and there's an account that we can refer to at 1 Corinthians 10 verses 1 through 11. Now, during their years in Egypt, the Israelites were exposed to Egyptian culture and of course their worship. Now, we're going to look at Unger's Bible Dictionary, and it says about what it says about this particular Egyptian culture. It says the Egyptian religion, was an utterly bewildering polytheistic conglomeration in which deities of the earliest periods, when each town had its own deity, were retained, and every object beheld, every phenomena of nature, was thought to be indwelled by a spirit which could choose its own form, occupying the body of a crocodile, a fish, a cow, a cat, etc. Hence, the Egyptians had numerous holy animals, principally the bull, the cow, the cat, the baboon, the jackal, and the crocodile. Now, shortly after miraculously delivering the Israelites from their bondage in Egypt, God instructed them, how He wanted to be worshipped. He gave them His commandments, found in Exodus 20, along with statutes and judgments dealing on how to apply them, found in Exodus 21 and 22. God revealed His feast days, which can be found in Exodus 23, 14 through 17, and Leviticus chapter 23, and gave directions regarding a priesthood, a tabernacle, and the offerings. also found in Exodus chapters 25 through 31. Now God told Moses to climb Mount Sinai and gave him 2 tablets of stone engraved with the 10 Commandments. And that account is found also in the book of Exodus 24:12 as well as Exodus 31:18. Now, when Moses didn't come down from Mount Sinai for some time, the people prodded his brother Aaron into fashioning an idol for them to worship. They essentially mixed Egyptian form of worship with the instructions they had just received from God. And the practice of blending religious beliefs and practices, is old, Now, after creating a golden image of a calf, now, I don't know, even if you don't know the Bible very well, I think this particular one is a well-known Bible story, which is about the golden calf, It's in children's Bible stories. It's well known, So Aaron proclaimed the next day a holiday, a feast to the Lord. They then rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterward, they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. Oh boy. This celebration combined God's instruction, as we've already said, with Egyptian religious practice and tradition. Now, we are not told why the Israelites chose this particular mix of worship. Perhaps they thought it was not a good idea to abandon all the familiar forms of worship at once, and they simply practiced what they were accustomed to from their years immersed in the Egyptian culture. Now, whatever they're thinking, God was not pleased, He told Moses, "Go down, because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt, and they have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them." Now, God shows from His Word that He expects more from those who claim to follow Him. He wants people to worship Him in spirit and in truth. And this reference is found at John 4:23 and 24. Not with corrupted, vile practices rooted in the worship of other gods. I mean, when you think about it, why would He go through all of that to put that in the Bible, the 10 Commandments, if He just wanted you to revert back to what you saw in Egypt? And they definitely in Egypt did not they did not follow God, gods, which we just kind of surface touched on their belief system. So the Israelites were in no way justified in departing from the God-ordained instructions introduced in the wilderness. Now, God was so angered by their actions that He was ready to destroy the entire nation. And there's an account found at Exodus 32:10 about this. So only on Moses' pleadings, so Moses had to plead for them, did God relent and spare them. So we're basically, if we didn't already have the answer, does it matter to God? Pretty early on, we're getting into this information in these biblical examples of how God it frowns upon this. It angers Him, and it's understandably so. So anyway, ancient Israel's experiment with combining parts of God's instruction with pagan customs and elements was basically a disaster. And punishment for this sin, 3,000 men actually lost their lives. And those who weren't killed had to drink water polluted with the ground up idol, pulverized into powder. Wow, that's messed up. So this particular account, of course, if I didn't say it already, I think I did, is found in the book of Exodus chapter 32. The pulverized powder part is verse 20. Whoa. Now, being presumptuous, taking unauthorized liberty, to do